Hi, my name is Hugo, and I was a former chemistry student at the University of Oxford. As I got to the end of my studies, I realized that I really wanted to go into investment banking. And to do that, I felt that I would be best equipped by studying at a business school, especially in a Master in Finance program. And those programs typically entail admission only when you have studied and completed a GMAT course. So I became aware of this, I'd say, in April of 2024. And so I planned to study the GMAT over the summer and then take my GMAT in autumn time, which is eventually exactly what I did. So I'd say I consciously started my GMAT preparation, put pen to paper in very early July of this year, 2024. I'd done absolutely nothing before I had kind of started then. I knew what the test was, but I hadn't practiced at all. I had done the TSA, which is a test in the UK, which I had to do for university admissions, which had a similar sort of kind of presence, but they are different tests. So I had very little experience, to be honest, and I did absolutely nothing before signing up for target test prep. I felt like based on the information I had available, I wanted to kind of really accelerate my learning and get a great score as quick as possible. And I felt that I was best suited to do so if I was using target test prep. So I hadn't taken any GMATs before I got in the program. I did a test when I started in the GMAT, not in the GMAT focus, but I scored, I think, I want to say mid 70s percentile. So not really what I was aiming for, which was, high 80s, low 90s. So I came across the course essentially just via research on the internet. It seemed to me like it was the most informative and most complete program, which was really fitting. I had no experience with the actual kind of process of taking this examination, right? So I wanted to sort of delve into a really complete package and something which covers all the bases, which is really what target test prep does. And so I joined in early July. I used it until I took my final GMAT, which I was very pleased with, which was on October 17th. And I think overall it was a really positive experience. It's a very complete platform, and it's really, really coherent throughout. So, it'll identify how long you're taking to answer questions, what your response rate is, specific areas where you might be weaker. What I thought was really great about target test prep is it has a massive bank of questions. And so if you want to practice a topic, you can revise it, but you really have to be answering a lot of questions, and that's really possible with target test prep. You can do sort of 30 questions on one topic, which is absolutely huge. And that was a huge game changer for me. I could look at my analytics result on the platform and see, okay, I'm weaker in topic X, and then I would go to X. I'd do sort of 30, 40 questions, and I'd get significantly better. So I think that's one of the real kind of fundamental strengths, is just the depth of what you can do. And, if you're mindful of that, you can really personalize your experience to what you need to do. So for someone like myself, I had studied chemistry, and so quantitatively I felt pretty comfortable with the course. None of the concepts are very new to me, and it was typically a case of kind of looking over the intro, and then I felt very comfortable to answer questions, and typically it would go relatively well. Where I was weaker was certainly the verbal aspect of things. And, I hadn't taken any kind of test like that in an extremely long time. And so it was great to, for those chapters, really flesh them out on the platform. So read the kind of intro pages, get a feel for what's going to be asked, what the question is really asking in itself, and then go through the reps of doing a lot of questions. And so by the time it came to test day, I was so familiar with the format of these questions and how they need to be answered that I felt like I had a real edge over other people taking it. So that's definitely one of the most important things about the platform. Again, as I mentioned, I think the kind of analytics side of things is really good, especially if you're working on a short time basis. You need to be able to very kind of accurately, constantly review what you're doing wrong and what you need to improve on. And TTP will basically do that for you, right? So you can look through all your topics. Again, it's split up into quant and verbal and data. And so you can get a very accurate sort of idea of where you are. You know, another thing that's really nice about that is that they, you know, track your sort of your presence on the platform. So there's an element of accountability, which I think is really important in these things, because it's not, you know, it's kind of more of a side project, and it's still important to sort of get as much practice in as possible, right? So I think overall, you know, coming back to this point again, the platform is just extremely complete. You know, you don't need to go anywhere else once you start on Target Test Prep. And I never used any other source once I actually started. So I literally just logged on and just used that, and I never ever used anything else. And I was, you know, able to get a score that I was really pleased with. So I think, you know, overall, this is definitely the way to go. It's extremely simple, but very effective. And I think that it's, you know, an extremely compelling platform. What I think, you know, Target Test Prep really affirmed for me is that practice and just doing a lot of questions is really important. You know, there are these fundamental concepts that obviously must be understood, especially in quant, before you can start to tackle some of these problems. But fundamentally, it's much better to do these, you know, topics with just this bank of questions where you can just constantly learn and apply and keep going. And again, on these questions, you will get marks, tests, you'll get feedback, you know, response time feedback. And again, the GMAT is very time pressured. So all this stuff is extremely useful, and it's not, those aren't features that you would get if you were, say, looking at a book or a bank of questions, right? So, you know, for example, I could look at combinatorics questions and straight away see, okay, I'm not very good at this part, you know, this subtopic of this part, and I actually respond very slow on these types of questions, right? So I think overall, to summarize, I think the platform is great. What really strikes me is, again, you know, and I've said this a lot, just how complete it is. You know, you really don't need anything else once you log on to Target Test Prep. You genuinely have all you need in terms of, you know, you can explore all the different parts of the platform, all the different, you know, topics. You can really explore where you are in your journey. You know, it's a very accountability driven platform, which is really nice. So I think, you know, if you're in the market to drastically accelerate your score in the GMAT, then this is really the place for you. As I say, when I started, I took my first one before any practice, and I probably got the high 70th percentile. I took another one I took my first real GMAT focus in, I want to say, September, and I got 83rd percentile. And then I took my final one on October 17th, and I got 98th percentile. So, you know, I really think that those progressions from sort of 77 to 83 to 98 are extremely correlated with my time on TTP. So it's a massive recommendation for me.